What you got? What are you pouring there, Bob?
So I got some, I think it's pronounced balcones or balcones.
Balcones.
And I had a pretty good idea that I wanted to fly. And so looked them up, and what's unique about their ROTC program up there, given that it's not the Harvard of the Midwest, but it's close, you know.
Not everybody go to Carbondale, baby.
No, it's our selection process is not nearly as grueling as yours.
So what are you doing now at Fort Hood?
So I am so basically I'm a team chief for training all the National Guard and Reserve units that come through town. So I'm like, as a team chief, I got basically a bunch of old battalion SPs and kind of dudes who've been around the block a couple times. So what we do is we advise, assist, and consult for the guys who come into town. Depending on what part of the world they're going to, we can help with progression and, just basically training their pilots and their general staff of how to synchronize together and prepare for their deployments. And so only being in this job for a couple of months, a lot of the stuff that I'm seeing is the team chief here. So there's the medical advisors, for the medevac units. There's sustainment and maintenance guys, and I've got everything for the assault community. You take a National Guard unit that's going to get ready to go deploy, and they are hodgepodge from units all over the state. So it's a lot of it just getting everybody together, get them to work together, how to function, just who they are, and get them all packaged up with a bow on them and send them out the door so they can go to their respective deployment or whatever they got going on. So just got done getting ready. We just got done with a organization that's heading to Kosovo, so they're in theater right now. And then we'll have the next crew that's coming in, getting ready to do a Kuwait, Iraq rotation, and then send their med guys all throughout the Levant.
Would you consider this the highlight of your career?
It's interesting. It
All right,
is.
let's do this. Walk me through your career first.
Yeah. Okay. So
So you're a University of North Dakota graduate.
Yeah, buddy, the Fighting Sioux. So I grew up in Colorado, small little town in Colorado, and from there, I started college at Metro State in Denver, Colorado, while I was playing some baseball. Through that part of the life. Everything was going well, but heard about this little thing up at the University of North Dakota where they've got this helicopter program, and I had a pretty good idea that I wanted to fly, and so looked them up, and what's unique about their ROTC program up there, given that it's not the Harvard of the Midwest, but it's close,
Not everybody go to Carbondale, baby.
No, it's our selection process is not nearly as grueling as yours. So essentially what it is you go up there and you start your Army flying before you ever get to flight school. So normal ROTC scholarship, and then I was getting paid, or my flight fees were all covered under this additional scholarship that was out there. So graduated from the University of North Dakota with a degree in rotor wing aerodynamics and commercial aviation. Had my private instrument commercial ratings and the rotary wing, had a fixed wing license as well. So when I showed up to flight school, I showed in the door with about 400 hours of flight time and got to skip half of it. So
are you serious? I didn't know you had 400 hours.
Yeah. So it was it was nice, man.
All of flight school is 175.
Yeah. And so when I show up down there, it's different. Everybody's got a different experience of flight school and kind of how things went for them. I liked it, but I was in and out of flight school within 8 months. And so it was quick for me. So for us, the North Dakota guys, you get down there and this is a long, long time ago, but you show up, you learn it. Hey, welcome to the Army. Welcome to Army Aviation. And that 2-week intro course. Then I went to go do a check ride in a Huey for an instrument check ride. And then I moved right into the basic combat school. And then from there, AQC into the Blackhawks, the final portion of flight school.
So you just show up into basic combat skills then?
Pretty much, yeah. I
Essentially,
mean,
after your check ride, were you in the OH then?
yeah. So
Okay.
instrument check ride in the Hueys, and then jumped right into the Alpha Chucks and flew those.
All right. Then you did everything else like us.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. I mean, there was a little bit of bouncing around, so I would start with one set of hats, so I think I started as a brown hat, then I moved over and graduated as a blue hat, but it was just because we were bouncing around a little bit. But it was unique. I mean, it was cool to kind of get down there and have a little bit different understanding of like rotor wing aviation.
Did you hate all the other lieutenants?
No, I mean, dude, you meet some of the best friends of your life down there. Although I will tell you, man, like my first great interaction of like, okay, this is going to be different. You sit down there and in the BCS phase, I'm sitting there with my stick buddy and whatever, we won't call names, but his name is Travis, right? And so Travis, I don't know how he got in, but whatever, he's here and he's flying helicopters. And so I remember sitting there and they're like, okay, it's rote memorization, right? Like that's all flight school is.
Yeah.
And they asked me about loss of tail rotor effectiveness. I was like, okay. Now I thought I'd explain it from the aerodynamic principle because I have a general idea of what aerodynamics is. Nope. They didn't want to hear anything about that. So I remember that IP looking at me like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And then he turns to Travis, who is borderline drooling on himself. And he's like, help your stick buddy out. And he just like vomits something out of his
gives
face.
The definition, right?
Yeah.
An uncontrolled rapid right yaw rate, whatever.
Which is not a side of its own. And I'm looking at him and I'm looking back at the instructor and I'm looking at him and I'm like, the dude doesn't even know what he just said. He's like, well, that's the standard answer we're looking for around here. And I was like, So maybe, as you know me pretty well, that could have been the first interaction of my personality in the Army of a little bit of like against the grain friction. Like, well, that doesn't make any sense at all. That was it, man. Graduated flight school.
And then
now I'm in Texas.
Yeah. Then you've kind of followed, I guess we followed the same path. I think we overlapped by a couple months. So I was a brown hat as well.
Yeah.
But we were probably the full cycle behind you then. So then what, right? Like walk me through the career.
Yeah. So I remember graduating flight school and, I happened to be going through with the guy that was from the Ranger Regiment before he swapped over. And he was going up to SEER school up in North Carolina. And I was like, well, I want to go check that out.
Who's that?
His name was Tim. I'm not going to remember his last name. Tim was with it. Was
not 101st guy. After
No. This is still back in flight school. Like him and I were going through together. And so he told me he was going to North Carolina SEER school, like the SEER C high risk going up there. I was like, oh, that sounds cool. I want to go check that out. So went in and I was like, hey, I'd like to go to the SEER school up in North Carolina. And they're like, okay, you sure? I was like, I think I'm sure. So I did that. And then once I got done, which again, like to this day of all the schools I've gone to is probably one of my favorite ones. And everybody's got those like SEER C schools. And I mean, and whoever, like anybody else is going to go through this thing. There's only one real SEER C and it's the one in North Carolina. And, but everybody's got those great stories. And this is going to be for like another thing down the road. But some of the things that I saw occur as a brand new second lieutenant going on in SEER school was some of the people and the things and the jokes that were being made. I was like, this is going to be okay. Like, this is going to be fun.
That's an unfair view of the Army, though, man. This is what?
Oh, absolutely.
04, the war's just now going on.
Well, and I'm in there like, because it's only the guys out of Special Operations Community. I'm the only conventional guy that's there. And so I'm this cherry second lieutenant showing up,
right?
And it's dudes from Ranger Reg, it's dudes from the 160th and like the SF community, and there's me like fucking rolling in like, hey guys, and just the like being kind of exposed to that community right off the bat. You're like, all right, this is pretty good. Like these dudes,
this is good. This is way
like
better
I like
than
this
dipshit.
yeah. And so, but then from there, jump up to the 101st, and I start in there, and we kind of land about the same time, but rolled into the great 4th Battalion when it used to exist, and started in HHC as the XO, and then played there for a little while, and then moved down to the flight companies. Obviously an 8-company guy with the Comancheros there, XO that company, then moved into a platoon leader position before we rolled into the 05 Iraq rotation, which where it all happened. But yeah, man, like 101st is where I kicked it off.
Okay. So you did, I don't remember. Did you do the same amount of time, 6 years there with me, or like five and a
When did you
half?
leave? I left.
I left in probably April or May of 2010.
No, I left in 09.
Right after the deployment.
Yeah. So I came back from the company command deployment, assessed to the 160th, got picked up there. Didn't end up taking it because wife hated the area, or at the time she wasn't the wife yet. But and then I moved out. So I was out in Virginia in 09.
Oh, I forgot about that. So you get picked up for the 160th Special Operations. Wife hates it, just hates Fort Campbell and doesn't want to live there. So you turn it down?
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Okay.
yes.
All right. So that's a short answer. That's a yes.
Yeah. Now, in full disclosure, in hindsight, looking back at it, it was the right decision to make. Now, did I walk away from, at the time, my dream job? Absolutely.
Right. Which company were you picked up for?
D Company, 1st Battalion.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. 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 So, but I'll tell you, man, like they were so unbelievably supportive, and that's how great those guys are out there. Right. So I guess to kind of back that up, I mean, we're in command in the 101st together. I'm working for a guy named Rob Dickerson, who's a battalion commander. He's a legend in the 160th. And he, at the time, like, and this is always in hindsight, of like you go through and you kind of see some people in life, or you work around some people, you're like, all right, at the time I didn't see it, but now I do. And that guy gave me some like lifelong great advice. And he pushed me in the direction of like, hey man, just go try it. Like, what's the worst that could happen? You don't get picked up, like it doesn't matter, So I went and I did it, and I made it through. And when we had those hard conversations, which I think maybe a lot of guys don't know about the options that can do this, but I was in the SOATC program, and I had the hard conversation with her, and she's like, I'm not happy here at all. And it's like, okay. So I walked into the SOATC guys, and I was like, hey, I hate to say this, but wife is not a fan of the area, and we've got this just may not work out well for us. And the dudes are so unbelievably supportive. They're like, hey, we get it, man, because this is a lot and you're going to be asked to do a lot. So we can end it here. And then where do you want to go next? And they got me hooked up with the job on the East Coast out there with the VIP internet. So nothing but like unbelievable respect for those guys. And then being able to fly with them later on in the community and just kind of seeing around those just impressive human beings out there.
So you leave there. We're going to circle back to that, I'm sure. So you basically have every like hard charging aviator coming out of flight school is like 160th, right? I want to fly DAPS. And you're like, yeah, by the way, I got a new wife who says no. So let me just turn that down.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go out to DC. And what are you doing in DC?
Yeah. So we pick up and go out to that VIP unit there in DC.
Yep.
And I think, like one of the other things when you kind of look at those pivotal moments in your life, especially the career, like to kind of bring it back to the 101st side real quick, like I think that I was able to be successful in my time farther down the road because of what I was able to learn out of the 101st in my time there, which is again, like
you're welcome.
You go back and look at, yeah. Nothing but like unbelievable mentorship from you and the boys out there. But yeah. I think when you look at the foundation blocks of like who we were and like what was built for us in the future, it goes back, and I equate a lot of that to my time in the 101st. And I remember, it's the Dave Bunts, it's the Rob Yops, it's you, it's Machine Gun, it's like all these other dudes that are out there, at least on the RLO side, that they become just like cemented in your past. And so as that kind of goes into, I'm not quite sure what I want to do. And honestly, I think a lot of guys have done this too, but about every couple of years, I'd be ready to get out of the Army. I would do something, I'd have a lot of fun, and I'd see what the future looked like. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to do that. And then there'd be a little bit more of a carrot,
Anybody that's got options has that view, right? It's like, this isn't the only thing going to be successful anywhere. Do I want it to be in the Army?
Right. And I see those guys, so you watch, like, at least for me in those times, and I was working with, Rob and Dave back then, and you watch how successful those guys were and just how naturally talented and they ended up choosing to leave the Army, right? And of course, they're like insanely successful in everything that they do in life now.
Right.
But I think you're right, man. Like successful people generate options for themselves, and those guys had great options. Now, I have been extremely lucky, and I can probably thank you for some of these things, but I mean, the Bahamas boondoggle, like that was ridiculous. And that
forgot
worked.
about that. So,
yeah.
I mean, it was down to you and me.
Yeah.
Right. We were the only two people that were going to get it. And like at the end of the day, I may have burnt the bridge with the battalion commander a little further to shore than you had. And you ended up with 9 months TDY in the Bahamas. Yeah.
So here's a thing where we're fresh back from Iraq, right? Like unbelievable trip. Like I had a blast doing it and it was great. So we come back home.
I fucking hated it.
Your Iraq trip?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but here's a good example.
I liked all the guys I was with, but
you had some key individuals,
man. That I was told, not to cut you off. I was told the Army doesn't need people like you in it. By the battalion commander as a lieutenant. And I laughed and I said, well, sir, I feel the same way about you.
No, I feel the same way with them as well. Nobody needs guys like you around. No, but I
don't know why it sucked.
Those two people that you're talking about, there are so many of them that are out there that just stifle, existence and creativity, and where I've had those conversations with people in my past as well. And I think that, especially for you and I, man, like we're definitely like against the grain kind of dudes, or like no filter person, like this is stupid. But when that comes from a captain, or a platoon leader to somebody else, or a platoon leader to a battalion commander, like this doesn't make sense to me. Like I just need, I don't get it. That creates friction. So yeah, when you were over there just scorching earth for your little tyrants and the Black Widows, it was, I think I just had 2 more planks on the bridge that I hadn't quite burned yet. So we all come back, right? And I mean, shit's still in storage. They come down and they're like, hey, we got this TDY thing that's coming down. How do you feel about going out to this OPET mission? Like, it's like, what is the OPET mission? Well, it's basically a counter drug mission down in the Bahamas that you're going to be running as one of the leads down there. I was like, okay, sure. Like, what is it really? Like this, I don't believe you at all. Yeah. Let me guess, I'm going into Saudi Arabia or something like that. I'm going to go back for another trip. Like, what other great part of the world am I going to go to? But yeah, man, it was, I moved down there and it ended up being just shy of a year, but it was as a mission advisor working out of the U.S. Embassy in Nassau, Bahamas. So horrible job, right? Like full per diem TDY, State Department housing, working out of the U.S. Embassy, 3 helicopters, about 25 guys just going and doing, drug patrols throughout Central America and playing around. And it just turned out to be like an unbelievable experience. So
didn't you befriend like Sean Connery?
Yeah. Well, okay. So the introductions that you allowed me, so you introduced me to FINA down there, right?
Yeah.
Well, that derivative turned into all those other connections down there. So because it's a small island and, you get connected with the right people, and fun people tend to be around other fun people. So there was a lot of fun to be had down there, and it was a definitely Gucci lifestyle. So yeah, I was able to go to cocktail parties with Sean Connery, and the gym that I was at, that was right across the street from the townhouse that I had that was right on the water. Like befriended Shakira and met a bunch of other people, like the big Atlantis resort down there with FINA. Like we'd go to parties down there, and I mean, I'm sitting here with Shakira on, one side talking about like her experiences out of Colombia and what she's doing in Bahamas because she owns a house out there, to going and seeing Sean Connery out in Lyford Key, to, hopping in a helicopter and going flying around to the Bahamas over just like perfect blue water down there and having fun. So all of that, my friend, I can say thank you because you were the facilitator to all of those TDY boondoggles that occurred down there. But it was fun, man. Like you
remember coming back and not realizing that I set that up for you?
Yeah. Let's call it what it is. There's a lot of
I'll never forget sitting at Hooters with DB, And you're like, man, I don't even know how I got hooked up into this. I'm like,
Like, you motherfucker.
you're buying lunch, dude.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it was
All good. Happy to do it, man.
moving too fast down there. But
I wouldn't
yeah, it
have
was a
done
good
as well
time.
as you down there, though.
I don't know, man. I think that you would have settled. So I think that only certain people, certain personalities would have excelled down there.
Yeah.
And there's a certain like networking capability that you have to have, which again, like I think that has made me somewhat successful in my career is,
Yeah.
are you a good person to talk to and can you like figure things out? Like, are you the guy that can pick up a phone and figure stuff out? In addition to, can you be a good pilot and all that other good stuff that goes
Yeah,
along
it's
with it.
assumed at that point, but yeah. All
Yeah.
right, so you leave the Bahamas, you're now in DC, flying VIP. Like, describe that mission for folks. And
Yeah, sure. So
not a well-known unit.
no, not at all. So yeah, Bahamas back up to Campbell, we command, bounce out, go now. We'll fast forward into DC. So check into the VIP unit there. Big adjustments, but it's based out of Fort Belvoir. It's like one of those like not very known, but a lot of fun organizations to be a part of. So I went there, and because I've still got basically some pretty fresh scar tissue from having to walk away from the 160th. Now Eden, who I met in the Bahamas as she was down there on a girls' weekend, and I literally picked her up in the bar in the Bahamas down there. So that turned into eventually becoming my wife. So I'm not happy out there, Another one of those moments in life of like, I'm either going to get out of the Army, I'm going to go to Georgetown, I'm going to go to school over there. After the fourth attempt, I got picked up to go fly with the Coast Guard. So I was maybe going to hop over and fly with them.
Okay.
Or this other thing that popped up. And so this was with the invite to a special operations, assessment selection program to go check out. And so it came up and, her advice was like, look, you're so miserable to be around, like, just go try it. So it was fun. Like, you get into DC, you have a lot of other
clue.
stuff.
She had
nobody has any clue.
She
clue.
didn't know what she was signing up for with that.
No, and honestly, man, like, neither did I. But that's kind of how it works. But to get into that area, I mean, we lived in Old Town Alexandria. I mean, the deal.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just an unbelievable place to live, and it was fun to be there for a little while. But from a mission satisfaction and job satisfaction standpoint, it just wasn't there for me. So,
yeah.
That same guy, I mean, Rob Dickerson, who was he's now working. Well, at that point, I think he was out in Washington or something. But
yeah, he was He was a cab commander in Washington at that point.
Yeah, and so I called him up again, and I was like, "Hey, I've got this other email invite from a guy." It's like, quit fucking around and do it. Like, you don't want to go to the Coast Guard. You don't want to get, like, you have more in you. Just give it a shot. And again, like, he gave me the same advice as the 160th assessment. Like, what happens if you don't make it? You have other options, But if you do make it, then you have another option. So just give it a shot. So I went through that, and I didn't make it the first time, which was a very grueling experience. And then went back. I got the invite to come back the second time. I got picked up for that organization. And
I didn't know you had to go through twice.
2 times, buddy. 2 times, yeah. So
all right.
Yeah, and that's a common thing, actually.
What can you describe about that selection process?
So there's a lot of things that it's kept vague on purpose, right? And
right.
Being able to see it from both sides of the fence, there is some extreme value of keeping it very generic and very vague. So you walk a lot. You do a lot of very ambiguous things just to see how well you perform with limited guidance, limited information, and just a test of your overall like physical fitness and mental capacity and mental fitness and things like that. So without kind of giving away the whole thing, but it's a lot of testing of that. So about a month long, and you spend a lot of time alone, and you spend a lot of time with a small group of very like motivated, focused individuals. Pretty high attrition rate, and so there's a lot of guys who don't make it, and there's some times that nobody will make it through selection. But the second time I made it through and started working with those guys out of Virginia.
And then how long were you there?
Total, including the advisor gig, I was there for about 6 years.
You were there longer than you were in the 101st.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was a nice adjustment, man. You get out there and you kind of start seeing what the capabilities could be. Like it's great to see how much investment they put into each one of those guys. So you're given everything that you possibly need to be successful. And if there's then like where we're talking back in 101st days, which again, like I love my time there, where creativity and questioning and trying to find different, more efficient ways to maybe go after a problem is somewhat stifled in those organizations. There, it's like, no, it's expected that you're going to do something. So a lot of the stuff that we got handed was just the most difficult thing that you've ever had to do in your life. Like, how are we going to get this all figured out? But through that creativity and through that intelligence and like, are you just a person who can just figure shit out? Those are the kind of guys that go through there. And I remember this is the common phrase that they say, we're not looking for the perfect person. Like, we don't want a perfect person. We want the right person. And so there's a very specific personality band that goes in there that tends to be like extremely successful in those organizations. So I was lucky enough to be a part of that and just try to hang on for a little bit and enjoy it.
What advice would you give somebody that's trying to get there? I mean, look, as lieutenants, we all talk about it, right? It's this organization that doesn't exist. And you're like, man, most people don't even know about it. And then like some point in flight school, it like comes up. I mean, like, what made you successful in there besides just questioning? Like, obviously there's a lot that's kind of baked into the cake that you're maybe not accounting for.
Yeah. I think it's the internal drive, man. It's like, do you want to do something more? Like, are you the guy who it's that constant fire that's inside, and like, there's a lot of people that can kind of talk on this but it all tends to be like, it goes to the same type of thing that's out there, right? Like, do you constantly have something inside of you that is yearning for more? Like, and if you're that person, like, I can do more, like I can see more. I want to get like, I want the problem, I think it's a Peyton Manning quote, but winners want the football. Do you want to be the guy when it's time to go? Do you want to be that person? That's who they're looking for. Of course, there needs to be certain levels of experience and things like that. Like, you have to be a successful platoon leader. You have to be a successful company commander. Obviously, preferred flying positions are where it is. But there were guys who went through there that were not like flight commanders. They were HSC commanders, something like that. But those guys were the right guys, and they'll train you where you need to be. So you're looking for a drive, a person who wants to solve problems and wants to be a part of a team and wants the most difficult thing that's out there. Give that to me. And if you're that person, then you should go for it. And, now throughout my career, because you got to do that and then to get, bounce back into regular Army, I get that question all the time. Like, what's your advice? And I would say it's the same thing that those before me would be like, just try it. Answer the email, give it a shot, go out there and try. And if the worst thing that can happen is that you don't make it, but actually I wouldn't say that's the worst thing that could happen. Yeah, you go out there and you don't make it. Okay. Well, maybe you get the invite to come back and you go again, because that's exactly what happened to me. But for my personality type, I think that the worst thing that could happen to me is to have to go to bed every night and think, that coulda, woulda, shoulda. And if that's going to be the thing that prevents you from going to sleep every night, then answer the call and just give it a shot.
Right. Yeah. I don't think most people realize there's 3 answers, right? Yes. Then it's like high-fiving and everybody's in. And it's no, not this time. So like, you come back a second time, and then the third is like, no, go fuck off. Like,
yeah.
You're not cut out for it. And that's fine too, right?
And that's okay, because you have to have a certain personality come in there. And if you're that third person of like, hey, it's just not a professional, like, you're just not a fit for us. I will say that whole selection process was one of the most unbelievably professional things that I've ever seen in my entire life. Like, it is to the point of, it is down to the second of when things are given to you there's a big flag that they have out there, like gigantic flag. And you want to talk about attention to detail, like every push pin in that flag, if it's on a red stripe, it's a red push pin. If it's on a white stripe, it's a white push pin. So it goes to that level of attention to detail, because you're trying to project, if you want to come be a part of us, we're looking for, like, it's much of a sales pitch from us to that candidate as it is from the candidate coming to us. And so you're trying to convey a certain level of perfection to them. And then you get there, and if you make it, best job I've ever had. Like, unbelievable.
What's it like?
It's fun.
Did you
Without kind of,
how many aircraft are you qualified in?
by the time I left there, I was, so obviously all versions of the Black Hawk, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5 additional aircraft qualifications.
Okay. All right.
But that place is a huge portion of it that is research and development. And that's really the main thing, right? So they're taking things of, you take to the ground user, like that guy who's looking for something different in an aircraft. The R&D aspect of that was they're making modifications to aircraft and armament and weapon systems and things like that what could take an organization years to push through the approval process, those guys are able to crank it out in weeks. And it's because of the people that they hire. I mean, they're brilliant. The XPs are brilliant. The R&D guys are brilliant. And so that part was fun, and it was interesting to kind of see it. But then you get a part of it, and it's addicting. It's a drug. And so now you have been going through your whole career, or really your whole life. And I've been a competitive guy my whole life. I used to be very successful in baseball. I've always had that, and then you get around these people and you're like, whoa, literally everyone is better than me.
Right.
And it's called the excellence creep, right? So you're so concerned about not letting your teammates down that you have no option but just to get better and ratchet it up. And then all of us are feeding off of each other. And so you get just to be around some absolutely unbelievable human beings.
Mm-hmm.
That was the biggest kick for me. Like, wow, these guys are just like, it's next level, and it's humbling, and it's challenging. And so when I left that organization and then I became an SMU advisor up in DC, the same thing. Like, you're given an enormous amount of responsibility as a human being, and I remember going up there to that job in particular and having talking to Eden about this of like, if I make these mistakes, and I'm sure that you and I were talking about this while we're up there too, like what you were given responsibility for, like if you screw this up, it has unbelievable compounding effects. And so then it's incredibly humbling to know that like everyone is counting on me to do this. And that hones down a certain level of humility and a certain level of like drive of like, I can't fail. Like I can't fail the guys. And so that really accelerated that new level of camaraderie and teammate mentality and things like that we go through. And then again, you just meet some of the most incredible human beings you've ever met in your entire life, that that just to be lucky enough to be graced in their presence is nice. And then when those people, you become friends with them and they call you a friend, that's the most humbling thing in the world. And you've met those guys. All those dudes that we were up there in DC with, and to go drink a beer with somebody in the Capitol Grill in DC and meet members of different parts of the community and just know who they are. Like it's such a humbling thing. Like, wow, it's incredible.
Yeah. I remember when you and our other buddy called me, you're like, hey, you know this guy? I'm like, yeah, man, I lived with that dude in flight school. You're like, oh, hey, we're in this course together. It's like, oh, of course you are. All right. What do you got?
Yeah.
What are you doing? I'm like, I'm doing nothing. I'm some staffer up on Capitol Hill, man. And they're like, oh, okay, yeah, come try out. I'm like, nah, I'm good, man. It's like a platoon sergeant. I think he's still there. I think he's like the head NCO of the whole thing now.
Yeah, he was a couple of years ago.
Okay.
But then, with that, you pop that individual, like I pop out of the woods and I see him and I'm like, what the hell are you doing here? And kind of
he
that
probably
point,
didn't even act like he knew. He's like, oh, yeah,
well, it was a demeanor hit, and you have to maintain a certain demeanor while you're out there. But clearly, because we were all just a bunch of degenerates back in our days in the 101st, there's no Boy Scouts in the organization. And I think that maybe that's one of those things that people are looking at, maybe go down that route. And that was told to me, like, we're not looking for a Boy Scout here. I was like, okay.
Well, I think you have the distinction still of possibly leaving a Black Hawk at the highest point in Afghanistan on the ground, if I remember right.
Indeed, you do. Now, I watched my wingman do that. I mean, that's a whole different. I mean, that came up in both selection processes. Like, what
Really?
did you do?
They
And
knew
what you,
about
oh,
it?
absolutely. Oh, of course.
Is
I
it
mean,
in your flight records? No,
no, it's not.
you're the wingman.
Yeah, I was the AMC and I was the wingman of it. But
Okay.
man, I'll tell you what, dude, you talk about, and I know that you've had these experiences in your time too, but
Well, hold on, let me set the stage here. So describe the mission set, right? Like just tell me what happened and then let's get into it.
okay. So we're company commanders. You're down in Salerno. I'm up in Bagram. And we were asked to go look for this airplane that crashed that had some ISAR capabilities on board that were important to get back. So we go out, and it's I mean, for those guys who are out there who kind of understand Afghanistan, we're basically in between Bagram and like Fob Blessing and that kind of portion of the Hindu Kush area up there. Like not exactly the best part of Afghanistan to be in.
Yeah.
So this aircraft's coming back home from its mission, and inevitably, what they think happened is one of the engines caught fire, and it just augured right into the ground. And through the accident investigation, what they did is they logged down before they actually touched back down on the ground at the location that they were going to. So nobody knew the aircraft was missing until the next crew came out to go pre-flight the aircraft and get it back out into the mission cycle.
Oh, I didn't know that. All right.
Yeah, man. So that's I mean, there's the criticality of doing the right
doing
thing
it the right way. Do it the
every
right way,
time,
man.
And honestly, to tie that back to like other organizations that I've seen, that's the question I get all the time. Like, what makes them so great? And like, there is nothing that we were doing in the 101st that is really that much more complicated or different than what I was doing in some of the organizations. But the difference is they do the little things right every single time. So their
Perfectly,
foundations and fundamentals are so flawlessly honed down and rehearsed and practiced every single time that they do it. So for whatever reason, that crew, and again, like you never question who was in, because I wasn't in the cockpit, so I don't know what those guys were thinking. But that was what occurred. So we get the call to go back out there, and it was, where is it? Well, we don't know. We think it's just draw a line on the map. It was coming from this target box and it was flying back to Bagram. So it's somewhere in there. And it's in unbelievable terrain back there. And it's parts of Afghanistan out east that humans had never been. I mean, there's parts of what we're flying over that I'm sure that either humans never been, or the last time that those Afghans saw anybody in a helicopter, they were either Russian, or before that, it was like Alexander the Great who was walking back through there. So
and how high are we talking?
We'd vary anywhere from 11,000 to, on the day that the wingman crashed, I was holding my orbit at 15,000 feet, trying to coordinate the rescue effort to get him off the mountain.
It's hard to describe that level of remoteness if you have.
It's incredible, man. Yeah, and you're right, and it's hard to describe it, but then to hop over a mountain ridgeline and see like a village out here, and you're like, what are you doing here?
Where are you getting food, man?
Yeah, and like that was a big thing that I always think about, and in all the other countries I've traveled to or flown over as well. Like, that's all I want to do is go land and get out and talk to those people. Like, you have got to have just an unbelievably fascinating story. Like, what in the world are you doing back here? Like, that's the guy I want to go drink chai with, and and have a conversation with. So we're flying over those people. But you're right, man. You want to talk about remote and austere and some of the most absolutely beautiful terrain that you could ever possibly fly a helicopter in. Like, that's what we're doing out there.
The last time I drank chai tea was, we're going to come back to that, was in Fob Shank when we were building it. And, it's like 7,000 feet on the tarmac. And we're building this thing. And I mean, I was like the first guy out there, right? They're like, hey, you're going to go build a fob. I'm like, I don't even know how to do that. Like, yeah, well, it's you. I was like, okay.
Yeah, you're going to be great.
So I show up, man. I smoked myself out of cigars in the first 2 weeks. Then the engineers are out there. And so they're building the berm. And so I eventually decide, like, I'm going to run this berm. It was like maybe a mile, like the whole thing, right? It's a whole airfield berm. And now people are coming in, and our buddy Nate Riedel's there. And I'm like, man, I really got to run. And so I'm running, and like, I've been running this thing for like 3 or 4 weeks now, 3 or 4 times a week. And one of our like checkpoint agents, he's, pulling out security. he comes out and he's in sandals, like typical man dress, in sandals, holding his tee. And I'm in the middle of my run, and he's like, gives me the shoulder shrug in the tee, and you're like, nah, I'm running, and he's like, he just shakes his head, looks at me, and he's like, okay, let's go. So then he's in sandals, and I've been running this thing for a while, and I like take off running, and it's basically a quarter mile on each checkpoint of this thing, right? And he takes off running with me, holding his tee and the two glasses. Yeah. And he's like looking at me smiling, and I'm like looking at this dude, I'm like,
and that dude's gonna smoke you. Like, he's gonna outrun you.
In sandals. And then we just slowly start accelerating, and he's just looking at me smiling, happy as a lark, dude. And by the time we get to the end of this quarter mile, I'm at a full sprint as far as I can go, trying to just beat this dude because I don't want to drink his tea. I'm like, I just want to get my workout in. And he's just like looking at me smiling the whole time. We get down the quarter mile, I was like, nah, man, fuck it, I won't finish the rest of my run. We sit down, have our tea. I'll never forget that dude. So,
but what a great story, man. And just it highlights just the toughness of those people. Like, they're incredible, like absolutely incredible humans out there.
Well, yeah,
some are. Let me rephrase that. There are some horrific human beings out there.
All right.
But the good ones are
fair.
They're impressive people.
I don't even want to get into what's going on now, but
that's a whole different thing. It's heartbreaking to see what's going on, but you make those connections, like that human connection that you had with just with the guy that's out there, and then the guy who is like starting to burn you down a little bit. Like, how is this guy in sandals carrying chai tea, giving me a run for my money? Well, like, I take pride in my physical fitness. Like,
yeah, dude,
I like to think that I'm in good shape and I can do just about anything. And I got this dude in a man dress and sandals, like, not only keeping up with me, but like pushing me to a point. Like,
I didn't have anything left. I had nothing left in the tank, and I'm pretty sure he'd have done that for like another hour.
Yeah.
And then been happy as can be. So I used to give him bunch of cigars on the drive to try to slow him down. All right, so you're flying at 15,000 feet.
Yeah,
you guys are looking for this thing.
So we get an ELT hit, like the emergency locator transmitter. Like, we get a hit on that thing, and it's at this. I'm a company commander at this time, and I've got and my wingman is a platoon leader and an IP, a guy named James and a guy named Ruben, and we kind of set the criteria for the day that. Hey, keep it up, like keep the altitude up if possible, keep the airspeed up, because we're so high that just the general performance and aerodynamics of the aircraft it's just garbage. And, it was interesting to kind of go back and look at this and then fly another aircraft up at like high altitudes, just how like mushy the thing is. I mean, you have this beautiful UH-60 Mike.
Brand new aircraft.
Beast, yeah. First Mike crash ever. Total loss ever. But, it just performs.
Were
like
Rob and Paul
shit.
and a Mike when they crashed? I think they were still in a Lima.
No, they were still in Limas.
Okay, all right. So they don't count. All right, that doesn't count.
No,
they lived.
No,
by the way.
But and again, like, technique is to flare before you hit. Don't just line that. Don't just slam it right into the ground.
It's a technique.
Yeah, but again, like, the beauty of, even if I banged one up, and I've banged a few up, but I mean, to that point, like, of Rob and Paul, like, arguably two of the best human beings ever. Paul, undeniably one of the greatest Army helicopter pilots that's ever existed.
Fair.
And they banged one in, and they will never live it down with the rest of us.
I didn't. I saved his life.
By
Paul.
How?
So we're flying. Was when Bergdahl was missing.
Yeah.
And so we're assaulting Bergdahl, like assaulting to find Bergdahl, like, he's pushing into overseas. And so we were kind of right on when all that went down. And we had like a 9.5 hour mission day between day and night MVG.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it was exhausting, right? Like, number one, you think you're a cool helicopter pilot. Oh man, whatever, taking small arms fire, RPGs, whatever. So we land and we're assaulting this town. And then we're in like heavy contact all day. And so we finally get relieved. Like, we're out of extensions. It's 9.5 hours, right? Like, no one's going to let us keep flying. The mission's still raging. And so we're flying back over the mountains into Salerno. And he's like, hey man, I'm going to fall asleep. I was like,
Should take a quick cat nap.
I said, what? It's like, yeah, man. I got to fall asleep. I was like, all right, man, just, I got it. We're, and it's IMC back. So we're flying in the clouds back, and we're flying, autopilot on those routes that we built, which, when you go talk to the guys at Fort Rucker, they're like, you can't fly mixed multi-ship IMC. I'm like, we did that shit every day, dude.
Yeah.
And so
it's fine.
we're flying back, basically single pilot, multi-ship in the clouds IFR to then land in Salerno. And he racked out like hardcore, I look over and he's out completely for about 10 minutes. And as we're descending back into Salerno, it starts getting hot. He wakes back up and he's like, oh, man, I'm good. I was like, hey, man, I just saved your life. He's like, what do you mean? I was like, imagine if you were on the controls. We would have all died. He's like, oh, come on, man. I was like, oh, yeah. Yeah, that's the story I will tell for years, Paul.
Forever. Yeah.
Like,
now, Paul was with me when I was a platoon leader. He was my IP back in the Comancheros. And again, like to the point of like, you're never going to live this down. We're coming out of the Washington pad in downtown Baghdad. And everybody's got their experience the first time they got shot at, right? And I don't like yours. I mean, I remember like that kind of generally what yours was, but mine is not good. And so we're done. It's at night. We're getting ready to pop on out of there. So whatever it is, like it's dark time, like it's dark, so on our images. So we pop up out of the Washington pad there in Baghdad. And my dumb cherry ass is looking out the windows. And I'm like, man, look at all this. Like, are these like fireflies? Like, look at these.
Celebratory fire, right?
And I'm like, actually, like verbally acknowledging the fact that they were like fireflies or lightning bugs flying by the aircraft. It's like, man, this is beautiful
at 100
right
knots.
And Paul is like, you are getting like lit up feet. Right now. Oh, dude, yeah. We're not even off the berm yet, like out of there. And Paul's like, what in the world are you doing? Like, you're getting lit up right now. And I was like, oh, they're not lightning bugs. They're tracer rounds. Oh, God.
We're at 75 knots.
Yep. Yeah, let's get going. I agree. I don't want to get shot in the face tonight. But yeah, that was my first time getting shot at, right next to Paul.
Ah, perfect.
Good times.
Perfect guy for it. All right, so this thing's augured in. You guys are now obviously flying slow at 15,000 feet. Do you have people in the back or not?
Yeah. So what we did, the way we kind of divvied up the aircraft, and we're like a week into this, and
okay, so you've been looking for this for a while.
Oh yeah. So there's two big things that like in the prep that came out of that. And so we don't really know where this is at. And we're just sending lines of aircraft out there every day to go find it. And nobody's having any success. And this is me as a company commander. Maybe this is for like whoever else is out there to kind of maybe like follow on and watch this. But those mistakes that you make as a company commander. And this is where I had like, if you want to be good, then you're receptive to like people telling you that you're fucked up. And two of our, I'd say like our best friends in life, Rich and Mark, unfiltered human beings, but best friends in life. And both of those guys come up and like, you need to fucking back off, man. Like you have got to go take a break. You're flying 7-8 hours a day, every day. Like you are clearly exhausted. Stop, go take a break, go sleep. And that was the first thing I remember that. And it was Rich specifically. He was like, you're going to get yourself killed, or you're going to get your crew killed if you continue down this path. And I appreciated that because it's one of those like open ice checks that you need every once in a while that only your closest friends are going to ever give you.
Right.
And that was like, I appreciated that moment. And I had to go take a break. And then we'll call this guy by his full real name here, but Ryan Deschamps was he was the Chinook SP that was with me up there in B Company. And Ryan 100% saved the life of my guys that day. So we're all in the talk that day and talking about how like the recovery effort would go, like jokingly, and it's me, Rich, and Ryan. And hey, if we ever augured one in, like nobody's coming for us. Like, I mean, it's that cheesy line, like no one's coming. It's up to us. And so Ryan, like we joked about that and said, yeah, man, if the call ever goes out, like it's going to be one of us coming to extract us, whether that is in a gunfight or it's us looking for this aircraft up there. Like it's up to us, and we will respond faster than anybody else will. So we kind of joke about that. And then, in our weird twisted humor, like, all right, man, well, don't you go dying on me out there. And we all go our separate ways. So now go back into it. They crashed. So essentially they got too slow and they got too low and they slammed the aircraft into the side of the mountain. So I've got a guy named Paul with me. He's my co-pilot that day, and a couple dudes in the back. But the way that we split the aircraft was I've got a Pathfinder team with me, and I've got a kind of a hybrid surgical response team with me. And so there's a flight doc, a couple of very qualified SOCA medics, and a Pathfinder team that's in the back.
Do you have 11 in the back?
No, with that altitude, I think we were 6 or 7 dudes in the back. But they also, heavy. And they're heavy, but those dudes had extraction gear with them as well, so quickie saws and stuff like that, if they needed to cut into something. So we're in a turn, we're looking to the ELT, and essentially they get too low and they crash into the side of the mountain. So they crash at 14.6. Okay. And, for whatever happened, I don't know why, but they found a way to get that aircraft cradled perfectly into the ground. It cracked the aircraft in half. And so, for the Black Hawk guys that are out, it cracked the beaded panel, it ripped off the right main landing gear, but that was it. Outside of that, the two pilots, Paul and Ruben, in a known crash scenario, they did everything that they're supposed to and do it the right way. They got the aircraft level and just get it onto the ground. And that's what they did. So they crash, no post-crash fire, no nothing like that. And the only injury was one of the crew chiefs, split his chin open when his head hit the handle on his 240. So now okay, well, shit, here we go.
Mm-hmm. What time of day is this?
It's in the afternoon, getting into nighttime.
Getting late.
Yeah. And so we're okay, here we go. You don't really know the status of what's on the ground because you can't see the guys coming out. We run the performance data on the aircraft, and I know that with the fuel load that we have, we can't land. And so I can't get them off the ground. While we're doing all of this, when we go up in that region, we have an Apache escort with us as well. And again, it was the company commander that was over there as well, a guy named Ryan. So his 64s are so heavy that they can't get over the next ridge line to get over there and start providing a gun cap for us. So the normal stuff you're supposed to do, you figure out what kill pad you're working in right now. And I started to coordinate the rescue effort just to get something overhead because I knew where we were. We get an MQ overhead, and then I was able to get a couple 18s overhead and just provide, hey, I just need I need a cap over the top. So we start building the cast stack with fires just to help us just in case we needed it. I'm talking to Ryan, and he's like, hey man, we'll punch our Robbies off right now to get over the ridge line to come help you. And I was like, nah, wait, man, it's not kinetic yet.
Not there yet. Yeah.
We're not there. And I think that I'm going to need the fuel in order for you. So just hold, just when you can pop over the ridgeline, do it. But right now, I don't need you. Put the call out on the radio. And, it's a normal fallen angel call that you put out. And when we get through that, we start working the crash, the on-scene commander thing and making sure the guys are okay. Nothing works. We can't get a hold of anybody. We can't see any movement in the aircraft or anybody coming out. So we're like, okay, maybe this is a little bit more severe.
You still don't know.
Yeah. So, and it was a good, time slows down. It may have been more than 5-7 minutes, something like that. But for 5 to 7 minutes, we couldn't see anybody moving in the aircraft. Mm-hmm. So we're like, okay, maybe this is more severe than we thought. But to go back to Ryan, I make that fallen angel call. And I hear Ryan on the radio, and he's way down south. I can't remember if he may be in Salerno actually.
So that fallen angel call goes the whole country.
Yeah, it's SatNet. It goes out, so everybody hears it.
Everything, man.
Yep. So I make the call, which is a good thing. That's the way it's supposed to go. But we call the fallen angel, and so exactly that. It's supposed to stop theater, and everybody hey, I need theater assets overhead right now.
Right.
And Ryan, that beautiful son of a bitch, he comes on the radio and he's like, hey, where are you? So I give him a quick coordinate where we are. And knowing the distance of where he is, and I'm pretty sure that he was in Salerno, they were dropping dudes off. Ryan and I think the other guy was John Wayrog. They basically shove everybody out the back of the Chinook, everybody out now. top the aircraft off on gas, and they bring those 2 Chinooks and haul ass up to go get it. Mm-hmm. So whatever, like, what they made those Chinooks do and how they made those things performed, I don't know how they didn't snap them in half, at the speeds and the torque that they were flying on the way up there, but they made it. So now back over the crash site, we picked up our orbit. We're doing the kill pad. We're getting the cast stack set up just in case we need it. And Ryan is on the other side of the ridge line. He's like, "Hey man, they're coming up the mountain." It's like, okay. And to kind of go back to your buddy who's, giving you wind sprints with chai tea, those people are mountain goats. And
oh yeah,
they're
coming up fast.
And so I don't know if it's bad guys or not. I mean, they could just be coming up to seeing what's going on. But what Ryan's telling me is like, they're moving. I mean, I've got weapons on them. It's like, okay, just keep an eye on them. I don't know how fast they're going to run up this mountain, but just let me know. So I remember him saying, be like, no, these guys, like, these dudes they're hauling ass up the mountain right now. And this is on foot in sandals. And it's like nothing for them.
What time of the year?
It's winter. It's cold. So, yeah. But anyway, so finally we get the guys on the radio, and, the Pathfinder team gets out, and they're like, "Hey, we're up." And so I talked to the Ruben, the PC, and I was like, "Hey man, everybody okay?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's fine. Just one guy's," and he's emotional. No, I mean, he is not like emotional. He's got his shit under control, but he's like,
yeah,
he just
like
crashed
shaking,
the helicopter.
Man. Like,
yeah,
hey,
like you just crashed the helicopter.
It's just fucking crashed a brand new helicopter at 14,000 feet.
Yeah, and so I was like, "Well, hey, I need to get the guns off the aircraft. You guys need to get a defensive perimeter. Like, they're coming up the mountain for you." So you can hear like his emotion for like, we're safe, the aircraft, and then you could hear in his tone of voice of like, it completely changes to, "Oh shit."
Yeah. Oh, like, I got more problems.
This is about to get way worse. Now, while this is going down, you break the golden rule, right? So, I mean, as a pilot, like you set a bingo fuel, and we run the math, and I got the rescue force in the back with me, but it's like, hey, look, 800 pounds. Like, we have to check off at 800 pounds.
That's all I got. Yeah.
And if we don't do that, we're going to have a problem. Well, we get everything done. 18s come down. They do a couple of passes for us to kind of get the guys back down the mountain. Ryan still can't make it over because of how heavy he is, but he does dump some 30 into the side of the mountain for us just to kind of like stop. And it kind of worked, But while this is going down in the bowl of the mountain we're in, like I'll fly one track and you'll fly into a snowstorm, and now it's basically dark, and you'll fly back out of the snowstorm, and you're just trying to keep that orbit over the top of them to make sure that they're safe. Not that I can necessarily do anything, but it's more like the boys are down there. They need to hear my helicopter overhead. Man. Yeah. And in those difficult times, like the humor that comes through is, I tell Ruben, it's like, "Hey man, I got Ryan coming up. He's going to be here in whatever amount of time. Just hold what you got, get a defendable position, and and he's coming up quick. I may have to, I'll stay with you until he gets here, but I do that." And so in the perfect sense of humor that those guys have, "Okay, it's great. Hey, just tell Ryan we'll have the LZ marked for him. LZ's marked by Crash Blackhawk on the X."
Right.
Okay. Fair enough, my friend. If we need to light it. Yeah, it's pretty easy. So I went below bingo fuel because I didn't want to check off until Ryan got up. So as Ryan is coming up the pass, I see him and I'm like, okay, we're out. Because I know he's got him now. And so we checked off at about a little under 700 pounds, and that's no bueno. So we're coming back. We do the math, we're up front trying to check it out. And I do my math. I check it. I hand it over to Paul. He does his math. He checks it as well. This is not good. And so we look back to the guys we have in the back. It's like, "Hey, we're not going to make it, boys." And again, like kind of that dark humor that some people have. The guys are like, "All right, well, just don't do that. Keep it softer than what they just did.
Yeah, just give us a landing.
Yeah, preferably not to crash." And so you have that conversation within the crew, like, okay, we're not going to make it back, so we'll probably have to ditch it or whatever, PL it out here. We're not in a good neighborhood at all. So, and it's getting dark, which we're going to use that darkness to our advantage. But as we're going back down the pass, I'm calling forward to the FOBs and the fire bases that are out there. Like, hey, I need to know if you guys have gas. And in those moments of like, I need answers quickly. Those dudes are like, we think so, but we don't know if we got a nozzle, and the fuel truck hasn't been up here. I was like, look, man, like I need to know now. And if you can't tell me an answer, like by the time I pass you, I got to go to the next place, and I got to go to the next place. So nobody could do it. We eventually get down to Methalam, which is good old that part of the in between Jalalabad and Bagram, right? And I call forward to them, and I know it's I know AOB's out there, and some other guys are there, and I call forward. I was like, hey, look, I'm about to run out of gas. I need somebody, like, I'm probably not going to make it within the wire, so I need you to see if you can roll your QRF out to help us secure the, like, either it's going to be a crash site or I'm going to be able to set it down. But either way, like, I'm going to need some help out here. And they were very responsive and ready to go. So they had an SF team, like, perked up pretty quick and ready to go help us if needed. But long story short, we made it into the FOB, and we're able to get down. It's like, I need a guy standing by to gas up because it's a 1-point FARP. Ryan and John they're on vapor. The other Ryan flying the guns, they're on vapor as well. So I know if I flame out in the FARP, everybody's done.
You're effed.
And it's so small out there that they're going to have to park their aircraft outside the wire, which is going to be all kinds of other problems. Like, it'll probably be fine. It's just going to be a massive inconvenience for that ground force to have to protect those aircraft for a little bit.
Could you stay hot? Could they hot refuel?
Yeah. So we rolled in hot gas, and nobody was there at the FARP. So crew chief gets out and hooks us up. And I remember this, like, big old, kind of tubby E4 comes over.
Crew chief, dude.
And I don't know if you remember him, but his name is Darren Olmstead. And
I didn't remember him.
Like, arguably one of the worst soldiers that you could have in the Army.
Right.
But a gifted mechanic. And
like, dude, it's like describes aviation, man. You're like, you're a terrible soldier, but you know what you're doing on that aircraft.
Yeah. And I mean, I love the guy to death. And like, I obviously drink a beer with that dude forever. But anyways, Darren's out there. A big old tubby fat E4 comes up, and he kind of like moves Darren out of the way. Like, you can't do this. And Darren just like grabs that dude and shoves him against the aircraft and like whatever version of expletives that he told him. So I landed in that FARP with 7 pounds in the left tank and 11 pounds in the right tank.
Oh my gosh, really?
Yeah. And
that's within the margin of error.
Yeah, just a touch. I had another couple pounds on that I could work with, But
yeah, sure.
Assuming that those indications are correct. But anyway, so grabbed 300 pounds of gas, hopped over to Jalalabad, and gassed up for the rest of the way. And then the rest of the guys were able to cycle through the FARP to get back. So that was it. I mean, got them back off the mountain and brought everybody back down. But we got lucky with gas that day and pulled everybody. But at the end of the day, like, Ryan saved their lives and pulled them off the side of the mountain. And that all goes back to just having like friendship and camaraderie and knowing like if things go bad, it's up to us to come help us out. So yeah, we left one up at 14/6. And of course, like, as the commander, like, the property and nightmare that ensued from that, like, knowing what I know now, I just would have.
Did you have to pay anything?
No, I mean, it's obviously all combat loss, but the crash investigation and things like that, just the silliness that comes out of some of that stuff sometimes, Yeah. But we had to go back up and take like SSE off the aircraft. So we're running back up there to like disassemble that aircraft. And again, like, knowing what I know now, before Ryan would have checked off, I would have just dropped 3,500 pounders on that thing just to like call it a complete loss.
Just be done with it.
Just done with it, But yeah, man, that was a wild night.
I thought you thermited that thing, but I guess not.
Huh. No, I mean, they zeroed everything. Now that I think about it, they didn't have thermite with them that night. Yeah, I don't think they had thermite with them, but we should have bombed it. But whatever, they pulled everything else off. Somewhere in here, I've got parts of that aircraft, and we cut pieces off. And I mean, I'm glad because we cut some pieces off to get back to the crew. But
oh, good.
Yeah, a little relic to hang in their house someday.
Oh, that's funny. Hey, this is when I fucked up.
Yeah. I mean, and really, like, they did everything right. I mean, other than crashing the aircraft, I mean, that happens. But if you're going to crash one, that's the way to do it. But no matter what, for either one of those guys, like, it doesn't matter for the rest of their days. Like, if they're around us, they will get their balls busted every single time, which, as it should be. Everybody's fine. Everybody's okay. But you're going to get fucked with.
It's like our buddy that shot up the aircraft.
Never live it down. And then look how successful that guy is. Which again, that blows my mind. That, like, and I mean, I'm happy. Like, it doesn't blow my mind. I mean, just naturally, like, remarkably intelligent, gifted dude. But like, what in the world are you doing?
You know, the brigade commander was behind him when he did that.
Oh yeah,
like
just come around the corner, like.
And so the whole reason he had that 249. So a friend of ours shot up a Black Hawk. He's a Black Hawk pilot. Shot up the aircraft that he was getting ready to go take off in, and he had wanted to take an M4. And this is like Iraq 05 days, right? Where like year zero mattered, like all the shit that doesn't matter mattered, right? And you're like, nah, man, like you can't shoot mine. Basically, I was just kind of being a dick to him, right? He's a good buddy of mine, so he deserved it. Yeah. And I was like, no, you got to take the saw. And he's like, what? And I was like, yeah, man, like you can't take my M4, man. Look, I'm going to use that. You never know. And he's like, all right. And so he was the saw qualifying instructor, because he was a ranger before. So he was a qualifying instructor of the whole brigade. So he's like, yeah, fine, whatever. So he takes the saw, but he's, to your point about being tired, we'd been flying him a ton. He'd been just exhausted. And so we were flying him an extra day, and he takes the saw out there, and he knows that that's a rear bolt weapon, and literally has it down on one knee, like doing everything right? Like he fucked up the right way, has it, and just literally slowly rides the bolt forward until it goes off, and it goes into the concrete, into the aircraft. And he's like, oh man. And the brigade commander, you know, Jeff Colt, you know, 3-star special operations hero, 160th guy for years. And Colt comes up and didn't say anything, just rips his Ranger tab off him. Like that was it. And then like I was back at the headquarters when all this went down. Like I remember watching the company commander freak out, and I'm like, yeah, but what happened? Right? He's like, well, he just shot up an aircraft. I'm like, I get that. But like, why? How? Right? Like, is he angry? Like,
did he do it on purpose? Or is this pure negligence?
Are we talking about falling down type of anger here, or like what happened? And you know, it kind of ensued from there. But you know, he never got a general officer letter reprimand for that, which I don't think he should have either. Oh. And so fully recovered. You know, he's actually
remarkably successful now.
Well, and landed in one of your old places. So he's doing well over there.
Yeah. Yeah. I guarantee that came up in this selection process, and they probably laughed at him after it, you know, like they're going to grill you during it, but yeah.
That's pretty funny, man.
All for shooting your own helicopter. Like, hence machine gun will live in infamy.
It happens, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, man. Well, hey, we got a lot more we can talk about, but
sounds good, buddy.
Appreciate the time, man. We'll do this again.
Okay, sounds good. Well, looks classy back there, buddy. So I guess next time, cheers from Texas, my friend.
Cheers, pal. Later.
All right, see ya.
If you liked what you saw, click subscribe. Do it. Subscribe now. We'd love to have you stay engaged with us. More importantly, if you like what you saw and you're ready for the conversation about purchasing or refinancing your home, give me a ring, 512-515-3956. Would love to have a conversation with you.